Well, we made it to Red River Gorge to the Martin Forks parking lot, but of course I missed the change on the expressway and we ended up about an hour late, but that's fine. I wanted to show you that Martin's Fork parking lot, show you what we found. When we got here, the parking lot was full, and as we talked about, trying to decide what to do, because we've got some options. We realized pretty quickly the parking lot turns over pretty often. So every 5 minutes or so, somebody comes from a day hike and frees up a parking spot for us. So having a full parking lot here at Martin's Fork wasn't a disaster like I thought it was going to be. Leaving Martin's Fork, the trail weaves its way across a little creek, plenty of sources of water, and you get lots of nice solid bridges.
Appreciate it. All right. Hey, did you bring the wood?
What a nice place to stop and take a break. I wanted to brag on the Scouts. Without any help from any adults, they found this place to do their bear hang. It's probably 10 feet above the ground, so it's totally high enough. 4 feet from the side of the tree, 4 feet down from the top. They pulled the bags up and then tied them off, like I've shown you before, with the friction nut right over there. And it's not going to rain or freeze tonight, but if it did, we wouldn't have any trouble getting our food down. Well, filming this direction, you shouldn't get a reflection of the sun off of my head. We're out at Hanson's Point. Scouts got up real early, didn't make a sound. We're out here, the sun's coming up. Absolutely beautiful. From the multiple camping spots here near Hanson's Point, you don't really need your hiking poles to get up to the point. There's one short little stretch, but you really wouldn't need it. Just bring your camera, maybe an extra layer for the wind, and come on and enjoy the sunrise. Sunset, though, isn't here. Don't come here for the sunset. That's on the other side. Met a lot of people in the last little bit, last half mile. They're parking by the suspension bridge here at Red River Gorge. And here's the bridge. Can't really see it, can you? Let me see if I can focus it a little different. There. Beautiful, isn't it? So that's where I'm going across. I probably will not film it. I'll see how it feels, but I don't want to drop my camera into her phone into the water. All right, it's swinging enough. I'm stopping. And here you can see where they've scraped away the bark so they can put the blazes on. I mentioned that in an earlier video. Be interesting to see somebody doing that actually. I'd like to give you a wrap up here for the Red River Gorge trip with our troop. Unfortunately, because a lot of the people along were minors and youth in the troop, I'm not really able to show lots of pictures of us as a group doing things. And so it was a great trip that way. We got along real well. And the scouts were not the youngest scouts in the troop, so they're physically able to do quite a bit and think for themselves and make good decisions. So a real successful trip. Keeping with my policy of revealing and sharing my mistakes, on the way down, I was the navigator. I wasn't driving, I was the navigator. And to save battery on my phone, I shut my phone off. So far, it's not a mistake. When I turned it back on, we were about 15 minutes away from arrival time. I realized we had missed a major expressway change just south of Lexington, Kentucky. We were more than an hour off course. It was going to take us an hour and 39 minutes to get from where we were to where we were supposed to be in about 10 minutes. We got to drive cross country through some small towns. Did you know that there's a whole mess of horses in Kentucky? Lots of them everywhere. And it was kind of nice. It was beautiful and everything. But we ended up getting to the Martin's Fork parking lot almost 2 hours after we were supposed to be there. And as you can imagine, I did take an appropriate amount of teasing throughout the weekend for showing up that late. It caused us a problem that it used up all of our buffer. We weren't young, but we weren't all experienced and old scouts either. And I kind of hoped to have a little bit extra buffer for slow hikers. And I had used up 2 hours of that buffer. And so that really sucked. Before we could start hiking, we also had to shuttle one of the cars up to the suspension bridge parking lot, just a couple miles up, but it was on the course for where we're going to hike out and come back. And so we needed that car basically at the end, but it's also the way it worked out, it's going to be in our midpoint. So we got started hiking about 2 hours late. Didn't concern me too much, but we did end up having some problems with the ability to go as fast as we needed to be. I know I've told you in the past that if you're by yourself and the terrain's not an issue, 3 miles an hour is a great planning speed. If terrain becomes an issue, 2 miles an hour is a good planning speed. Now you saw in the Shenandoah National Park, I was going about 1.74 miles per hour. Still 2 miles an hour with some terrain issues is not a bad planning speed. With a group, regardless of anything, 1 mile an hour. And that's a pretty good planning speed. For us, we were not able to go 1 mile an hour. We had to take frequent stops to regain breath and get the heart rate back down. Not all of us were in great hiking shape. We eventually did decide to break up into 2 groups, a faster group, and then I stayed with the slower group with wilderness first aid training, and as the adult leader on the group, I felt I had a responsibility there. The faster group got to Hanson's Point. That was our target for Friday night. Set up camp And we got there just before dark. We had plenty of time to set up camp, and then the sun set and it was time to make dinner. We sat around the campfire area and had dinner together and did our roses, buds, and thorns. We intentionally did not have a campfire. We had discussed this earlier, that because Hanson's Point and Cloud Splitter the next day are dry camps, we wouldn't have enough water to put the fire out if we made one. Other people did make fires, and that's their choice, but we felt that we needed to be able to put it out before we went to bed. Along the way to Hanson's Point, we went past Gray's Arch. When we got there, our maps, our paper maps and our GPSs didn't align with what we were seeing. The GPS was a little bit confused because we were in a valley. It didn't quite know where we were. We'd make sudden shifts. In the paper maps, if you ever wanted to zoom in on the paper map, and you can't do that, it just wasn't detailed enough for us. So we worked together really well. We actually went up to Gray's Arch and proved that that was the wrong way to go. And that was my assumption, that when we got there, we'd find out that no, that's the wrong way. We came back and we found the trail that we were looking for. I'm not sure why we missed it. I think we're all focused on looking at the arch and looking where we were walking, because the trail, when we missed it, was on our left. And I think it was actually kind of hidden from us, even though it was a big broad trail and there was a sign and everything, we just missed it. As we sat around and did our roses, buds, and thorns before we hit the sack, they were all very positive. The weather was great. We were hiking a little bit slow, but that wasn't a real big deal. We were able to cope with that. The only kind of thorn that anybody had that was significant was one of the women was having blister issues. And apparently they're very typical for her, where she was getting them. She gets those blisters and knows how to treat them. It's just not a lot of fun to have blisters, of course, but she was able to take care of herself. We got up early before the sun came up and walked out to Hanson's Point. It's from where we camped, it was maybe 10-15 minute walk at most. Easy to find. It's kind of cool, actually. The trees are very tight, and so you wiggle and wobble and go all the way between these trees, and that leads you right out to the point. Lots and lots of places to camp up there. I'd be surprised that even on a busy summer weekend that you would have a problem finding a place to put up your tent. You might get close to other people, but there was tons of spots. So we got to watch the sunrise. That was just absolutely beautiful. The wind is blowing here, as you can tell. We headed back into our camps and took our tents down, had breakfast, and headed down towards Cloud Splitter. Cloud Splitter is going to take us past the suspension bridge, or over the suspension bridge. And we had shuttled one of the cars to that parking lot by the suspension bridge. In the car is where we had lunch and more water. Because Cloud Splitter is a dry camp, our lead scout figured out that a menu change was appropriate. Instead of having our big dinner at night, he wanted to have our big dinner at lunchtime. And we've never done this before. We've done that concept before, but what he planned out was fajitas. And they brought from home, he brought his big camp stove with 2 burners and the wall around it, and a big canister of fuel and a couple big frying pans. And so they fried up some onions and green peppers. They had pre-cooked the meat, but they heated that up on the other frying pan. They had the tortillas. I don't like guacamole, but they had guacamole, they had sour cream, they had shredded cheese. And we had a feast sitting in the parking lot right by the car. People were going past and they were very jealous, and boy, did it smell good. So we actually had a couple-hour lunch sitting there relaxing. We headed out then towards Cloud Splitter. You go back up towards the suspension bridge and hang a left for us, the way we were going. And it took a while to get there. It was mostly uphill. Got there, and it got steep. And at one point they actually had ropes so to help people climb. It was that steep. We went up to Cloud Splitter. It's beautiful up there. We took some pictures, and our plan was to camp on Cloud Splitter. Our troop has done that before. And it was a little bit of a mystery. Everyone we talked to knew nothing about camping up on top of Cloud Splitter. Not on the bald rock face, but back in to the woods area, into the forest. So we poked around and we looked and we found the old fire ring. We found where the campsite is, but it was basically overgrown with all kinds of prickly bushes, nothing that we could deal with. We could deal with it, but we didn't want to. We don't need to be setting up our tents on brambles. We definitely don't want to be setting them up out in an exposed area. So we had to figure out a second plan. The current plan was to camp there at Cloud Splitter. Cloud Rest is at Yosemite. You got to go there too and check out Cloud Rest, but Cloud Splitter. So we spent quite a bit of time looking at the maps, talking about options. I even used the phone a friend lifeline and contacted a couple friends of mine. We've hiked at Red River Gorge together in the past. And hey, what do we do? And where should we go? What are your ideas? And what they suggested is that the next viable campsite for us was going to be Indian Arch. We've camped there before a lot, but according to the map, it was going to be maybe 6 miles. I'd have to measure it exactly, but it was farther than we could go between when we were about maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was further than we could go before nighttime, and I for sure didn't want to take our troop into night hiking. I'm not comfortable with this group yet. It's not a group of older scouts that are all 16, 17, that have done lots of backpacking. There was a mix, and I didn't want to do a lot of forced night hiking. We'd end up with a death march, I was afraid, trying to find a place to camp. We suspected there might be places to camp along that route and checked with people coming that way. And yes, there are places to camp between Cloud Splitter and Indian Arch, but from the reports we were getting, it was full. All the good spots were taken. And based on the mix of our group with the genders and the ages, we had to have 6 tents. We probably could have gotten it down to 5 if we twisted some rules a little bit, maybe down to 4. But we had to have a place to put up at least 4 tents, and that just wasn't going to happen. So we looked at the options, considered, what had we gotten done? We had hiked all the miles that we wanted. We had seen everything that we wanted to see. The only thing that we hadn't done is camped the second night and then hiked out in the morning. So it was a tough decision, but I think it was the right one. I'm still by it. I still stand by it. We decided to go back to the cars. We had dinner in the parking lot. We had the lead scout came up with a really great menu for this weekend. It was small round pieces of bread with a round mozzarella cheese slices, the same size, with pepperoni and some pizza sauce. It was all cold, so we had cold pizza, but I don't know how many times I've eaten cold pizza. That was no big deal. And so we sat in the parking lot, had cold pizza for dinner, and then we all headed home. So we actually only did one night of camping, and still did pushing 20 miles of backpacking, maybe 16, something like that. So overall, the trip was a great success. So my roses, buds, and thorns for this trip. Fantastic weather, absolutely beautiful. Went down 40 degrees or so. The forecast a couple weeks ago was it was going to go down into the high 20s. So low in the 40s was pretty good, high in the 60s. You just can't beat that. Clear skies. Maybe a thorn was that where we camped at Hanson's Point. There were so many trees you couldn't see the stars, but you could tell that there were no clouds. It was absolutely beautiful. Our group did really great working together. When we weren't lost at Gray's Arch because we knew where we were, but when we had trouble figuring out where to go, we worked together as a team and tried one route, it didn't work, talked about it, tried a different route, and eventually did find where we're supposed to go, and it just worked out great. We were all on the same team working together. Nobody sniped at anybody, nobody condemned somebody else's ideas. It just worked really well together. I was really proud of the group. Of course, one of my thorns was that I got lost on the way to the place, and that's embarrassing, and I'm going to bet that the abuse I'm going to get has not ended. I believe that I will get ongoing teasing for that. The impact on the weekend, the kickoff of the weekend anyway, was pretty severe. Showing up 2 hours late and eating up our hiking buffer. It really gave us a risk that I didn't need to have. In terms of buds, man, I can't wait. This is a growing group, these scouts. and they're getting stronger and more experienced. And we can take on some tougher challenges, even just after this weekend. I'm really looking forward to our next outing. That might be in November. We do a wilderness survival camp out quite often, where the Scouts Friday night sleep in their tents. Saturday, they spend the entire day building an emergency shelter, and then Saturday night they sleep in it. And it's very popular. It's a lot of fun. The kids are working hard. And you know what? On Sunday, they're hungry and they're tired. They had a lot of fun. So anyway, if you've been to Red River Gorge, make some comments down below on things we should do next time we go down there. And any other ideas or suggestions, questions you got? I appreciate your support and I appreciate you coming back. See you later. Bye.